Hello, my name is Jalyn Spencer. I am a board certified lactation consultant. So today I was going to share my breastfeeding journey and the lessons I've learned from that. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I think it's important that I'm not just speaking from clinical experience or from evidence-based research or from just working with moms and families. I'm also speaking from my own experience because it's why I'm here today. It's why I am a lactation consultant, and it's definitely plays a part in how I work with moms and the empathy I have for moms that are breastfeeding. So yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience and what I learned from that. So let me just give you a quick story. I have 2 children, and my first child, my son, when I was thinking of breastfeeding him, I did pretty much everything I thought I could do at the time. Now remember, this is 20 years ago. The internet was around, but this was pre-Facebook, pre-YouTube, pre-all of the things that you guys have. Pre-Google, actually. I think we had Yahoo and I don't know, some other websites, but pretty much most of the information you were getting at that time was from books. Anyway, I wanted to have a natural birth. I had planned a natural birth at a birth, and I took prenatal yoga. I ate what I thought was a healthy diet. I did all those things, and I just knew I thought, oh, I'm just so confident. The birth's going to be easy. Breastfeeding is going to be easy. I just imagined that this was just what I was going to do. Again, I read the book I actually read was by the Lactation book on breastfeeding. I forget what it's called. What is it called? Lactation. I can't remember, but it's basically their definitive guide to breastfeeding. It's been around for 50 years, something ridiculous. But I read that from cover to cover, and I wish I could show you because it's just a lot of reading. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a lot of reading. And then there's some black and white pictures thrown in that show you moms that are holding their babies in different positions, breastfeeding. So this was all I had to go by. But in any case, I didn't have the birth that I wanted. I didn't end up having a birth center birth. It was a vaginal birth, but I did end up using some medication they said, take the edge off the pain. I didn't get an epidural, and I was induced, so it made it really tough to not have a little something. But in any case, I had a vaginal birth, and back then, this is before they even knew about skin to skin and its effects on breastfeeding and how it can help babies get off to a good start with breastfeeding. After he was born, they took him to the warming bassinet. They wiped him off. They did all the stuff. They put all the goop in his eye, and then they swaddled him very tightly, and then they handed him back to me as this little package, my little bundle of joy. And then the midwife was like, okay, time to breastfeed. And I was like, okay. And I just did what I thought I was supposed to do. And she watched for a second, and then she saw that he was latched on, and that was the end of that. And so I just kept doing that. Whenever he would cry, I would just put him on the breast. It was a stressful hospital experience because I was sharing a room with another woman, and she actually had a botched epidural. And she was in like this intense pain, and I felt so bad every time my son would cry because I guess she was having like really bad, headaches, migraine, like a really spinal headache, and really severe. So I was like really stressed out because every time my son would cry, I would be thinking that she was making her pain worse. And so that definitely made me just, every time he cried, I was like, here, take the boob. But I did that, and I got home after a couple of days and kept doing it. And of course, like many moms, new moms, I ended up having nipple pain. I don't know how bad it was or how damaged my nipples were, but it was intense pain. We went on like that for about 3 weeks, and then eventually it died down, the pain died down, and the rest is history. Pretty much the rest of my journey with him was pretty easy. One of the things I was lucky that I was a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't have to worry about going back to work. I didn't even have a pump. I had a manual pump, the old school Medela pump, but I didn't have an electric pump. I don't even know, they weren't even offering electric pumps back then. I'm sure they were very expensive. So yeah, it wasn't even a thing to get a pump. Yeah, so I just breastfed him until he was 2.5. When you're a first-time mom, it's like amazing to see yourself make milk and see your baby suckling and satisfied from your body, and I was lucky to be able to experience that. And the thing is, I share this not to brag, but just to say that you don't need all the stuff you think you need. And even if you don't have the ideal situation and environment, it doesn't mean you can't breastfeed. Because I didn't have the perfect birth, I ended up being induced. I didn't do skin to skin. I didn't even breastfeed him they had to stitch me down below. So I probably didn't breastfeed him till about maybe 20 minutes after birth. It might have been longer. So all those things they say are important for making sure babies latch on and get off to a good start. We didn't have that. And I didn't have a pump. I didn't even really have support. I had my mom. My mom was with me for the first month, so that really helped me be able to just focus on breastfeeding and trying to figure out how to get him to latch without pain. But I didn't have any friends or family to support me. I was the first of my friend group to have a baby and breastfeed, so I felt like I was like the guinea pig. Like they were watching me like, oh, okay, let's see how this works, see how it goes for her. But yeah, I didn't really have a support system, and there weren't any Facebook groups around. I did attend a few La Leche League meetings when my son was like maybe 6 months old, and then eventually once he was closer to a year old, I did find another group of moms that I could be around. But by then it was like breastfeeding was like nothing. But in the early days of breastfeeding, I really didn't have much support. So again, don't feel like if your situation isn't ideal, that means that you can't breastfeed. It just might mean you want to prepare yourself ahead of time to put things in place so that it can be easier for you. I think the thing that made a big difference in terms of why I was successful with breastfeeding is that I didn't even consider formula. For me, and I'm only speaking for myself, I'm not saying that this is how everyone has to think, but for me, being that I was just very natural oriented, was into organic, natural foods, and I was vegetarian at the time. I'm not anymore, but I was vegetarian at the time, and it didn't make sense to me to even consider formula. I figured, why would I use formula when I have milk that my own body can produce? That's the best thing for my baby. So I didn't even consider formula. I didn't bring a can home just in case. And maybe if I had formula nearby when I was in pain with breastfeeding, I might have considered using it, but I'm glad I didn't, because it just kept me focused on my goal as far as being able to breastfeed and just figuring it out. Oh, the other thing is I didn't have any lactation consultants, so I didn't even know what a lactation consultant was. Again, this is 20 years ago. They weren't in the hospitals as far as I know. No one came to visit me and check on breastfeeding. They just, I guess he was getting enough milk, because they didn't say, oh, he lost too much weight, or they asked me how many times did he poop, how many times did he pee, and I looked on the little card and I had written down everything, and they were like, okay. So yeah, I didn't get any expert lactation consultations at any point. But yeah, I think the thing that helped me was just having that sheer determination that this is what I was supposed to do, this is what my body was meant for. Another thing is, right after college, I had spent about 9 months in West Africa, in Ghana. And it was like an immersion program that I attended. And of course, I won't say of course, breastfeeding rates have gone down significantly in countries like Ghana. But at that time, it was nothing to see a mom breastfeeding in public, whipping out her boob. No one said anything to her. No one looked at her funny. Guys didn't think anything, and they didn't look the other way. It was just natural. And I saw this over and over again over 9 months. And so I think having that experience also played a part in my confidence that, okay, this is just what mothers do. This is how breastfeeding works, and I'm going to be able to do it too. I think that did help, because again, I didn't have any other role models around me at that time when I did start breastfeeding. So fast forward 21 years, things have definitely changed, right? There's so much support available to moms these days. So you don't have to struggle as much as I did with breastfeeding your first baby, or whichever baby this is for you. There is help available. So I encourage everyone, if you're pregnant right now, line up some breastfeeding support. You may not need it, but it's always better to be proactive and find out what those resources are in your community or online if they're not in your community, so that you have them on hand when you need them. It's stressful enough to have a newborn, and if you're having breastfeeding problems, you don't want to have to then go try to find an available lactation consultant. I'm going to keep saying this till I'm blue in the face, start off while you're pregnant. Look for lactation consultants in your area just in case you need a home visit, if you need someone to see you after you have the baby. But I would also encourage you to get a prenatal lactation consultation, just so that you'll have somebody assess your situation, figure out what your goals are, and help you come up with a strategy to make sure that you can meet those goals. There can be different factors that might cause issues with breastfeeding. You have a certain medical condition, you definitely want to make sure that they're not going to get in the way of your breastfeeding success. So yeah, there's so many resources available, not just lactation support. You have pumps available, so even if there's some issue in the beginning, maybe baby doesn't latch or something like that, you can pump and get started that way, and then try to get a lactation consultant to help you get things back on track with breastfeeding. And in some cases, at least here in the United States, there are some insurance companies that will pay for lactation support with no out-of-pocket costs to you. So I don't know what the situation is in other countries, but definitely look into that. Look and see if there's any support that's available free of charge for you. But if there isn't, I think it's worth the investment to save up for lactation support if breastfeeding is important to you. So a lot of moms, if they're having problems with breastfeeding, they say, oh, I'm just gonna pump. I'll just pump for a year. And that's definitely an option, but in some ways, pumping is harder than direct breastfeeding. Direct breastfeeding can be hard in the first couple weeks while you're learning and figuring things out and trying to get support. But once you get it on track, usually the rest of the journey is fairly easy. There might be a few bumps in the road along the way, but usually it's fairly easy after the first month or two. But with pumping, you have to stay on a routine. If you get off of that routine, pumping at least 8 times every 24 hours, that means waking up in the middle of the night to pump, that can get old really quickly. And I know moms that start off really good, but after 2-3 months, they're like, oh, this is a drag, I hate it. And it's very hard to maintain that consistency for a whole year. And I do know some moms that they are, if you're a type A person, you're very scheduled and that kind of thing, exclusively pumping can work for you. I guess you have to just consider your personality and consider what might be best for you. But it is important, if you think you want to breastfeed, I think it is worth it to invest money into. And a lot of times you're gonna need more than one session. Right? You're going to need 2 or 3 just to make sure you're off to a good start. Virtual consultations are another option, and definitely if you're interested in a prenatal consultation, you can get those affordably, do those virtually, and again, you can get off to a good start and make sure you're prepared for breastfeeding. Just don't leave it up to chance like I did. I thought I was prepared and I did everything, but I still ended up having a lot of pain and a lot of worry around and stress around breastfeeding in the beginning, and you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to struggle. It's not a badge of honor to endure this type of thing when there is support available to guide you through it and to shorten that time. I'm not saying that breastfeeding in the beginning is going to be pain-free, but you can at least reduce the intensity and the stress and the worry about, I don't know if the baby's getting enough milk, all of the anxiety and worry around it. You can alleviate that by working with someone who's a professional. I think I got lucky with breastfeeding that it did eventually get better after 3 weeks. I didn't end up with mastitis or cracked and bleeding nipples, which happens a lot. I see it a lot. And I always think, man, if this woman had called me 3 weeks ago, maybe she had called me during that first week after she had the baby, we wouldn't be in this situation. So yeah, that's just something to consider.